Imagine you're talking to someone. The conversation flows naturally. Then, without warning, without a reason, without a goodbye, they disappear. Your messages are read but never answered. Your calls go unanswered. Years later, you still find yourself asking the same question. What did I do wrong? There is something even more painful than outright rejection. At least, rejection gives you an answer. What hurts isn't simply being left. It's being left suspended in uncertainty, forced to invent your own explanations for why someone walked away without ever knowing the truth. Why is it that, in an age when communication is easier than at any other point in history, so many people choose complete silence over 10 honest words? I don't want to continue this anymore. The answer runs far deeper than a lack of courtesy. Today, we're going to explore the psychology behind one of the defining emotional wounds of the modern age, the art of disappearing without explanation. The problem: almost everyone has experienced it. A relationship that ends without a word, a close friend who slowly fades away without explanation, a colleague who never replies after the project is finished, a partner who disappears after months of closeness, leaving behind nothing but unanswered messages. What makes ghosting so painful isn't the loss itself, it's the absence of closure. The human mind is wired to seek complete stories. When a relationship ends without an explanation, the brain struggles to close the chapter. It keeps replaying the final conversations, searching for hidden clues, questioning every detail and often blaming itself for answers it may never find. And perhaps the saddest part is that this has become increasingly common. The easier it has become to connect digitally, the easier it has become to disappear with a single act of silence. Relationships that once required the courage of an honest goodbye can now vanish simply because someone chooses not to reply. Human psychology. To understand why people choose to disappear instead of explaining themselves, we first need to understand something fundamental about the human brain. Confrontation often feels like a physical threat. Research in social psychology has shown that social rejection activates many of the same brain regions associated with physical pain. And this works both ways, not only for the person being rejected, but also for the person who has to deliver the rejection. Saying something as simple as, "I don't want to continue this relationship," can trigger fear of conflict, guilt, and anxiety over another person's emotional reaction. For many people, disappearing feels emotionally safer, not because they are cruel, but because they want to avoid witnessing the pain they know they are about to cause. Psychologists describe this as conflict avoidance, choosing long-term discomfort for someone else in order to escape immediate discomfort for yourself. Ironically, the longer someone avoids that difficult conversation, the more guilt begins to accumulate. And with every passing day, offering an explanation feels even more impossible than before. Human nature. Beneath this behavior lies something even more fundamental about human nature, our tendency to choose personal comfort over honesty, especially when honesty is painful. Human beings naturally try to avoid guilt, but instead of confronting it and resolving it, many people bury that guilt by avoiding its source altogether. This is not a new flaw. Throughout history, people have always found ways to escape uncomfortable confrontations. Only the methods have changed. What makes the modern world different is how effortlessly this avoidance can happen without immediate consequences. In the past, ending a relationship without explanation often meant continuing to live in the same community, facing questions, awkward encounters, and the silent judgment of others. Today, someone can disappear completely with nothing more than a locked phone and an unanswered message, never having to explain their decision to anyone. Storytelling. In ancient Rome, there was a punishment rarely discussed, yet terrifying in its meaning. It was called damnatio memoriae, literally, the condemnation of memory. When someone was judged to have betrayed Rome or disgraced the empire, the Senate did not always execute them. Instead, it chose something quieter and, in many ways, far more devastating. Their name was erased from official records. Their statues were destroyed or carved into the likeness of someone else. Their inscriptions were chiseled away. Every trace of their existence was removed, as though they had never lived at all. Imagine that punishment from the victim's perspective. No opportunity to defend yourself. No explanation. No final conversation. You simply vanished from the world you had once helped build. No closure, no understanding, only an imposed silence. Surprisingly, 2,000 years later, modern society has created a smaller version of the same punishment, not with chisels and marble, but with unread messages, unanswered calls, and conversations that end without a single word. At its core, ghosting is a personal form of damnatio memoriae, a unilateral decision to erase someone from your life without giving them the chance to understand why. The only difference is this: the Roman Senate, at least, left behind an official reason, even if the condemned never heard it. Modern ghosting often leaves nothing at all, only silence, and another human being forced to invent their own explanation. Stoic insight. The Stoics offered profound wisdom for both sides of this wound, those who are abandoned and those who choose to disappear. Epictetus taught that our greatest suffering comes from trying to control what was never ours to control, including the choices and actions of other people. For someone who has been ghosted, freedom does not come from forcing an explanation that may never arrive. It comes from accepting that another person's behavior belongs entirely to them, and turning your attention back to the only thing that truly belongs to you: how you choose to move forward. Marcus Aurelius repeatedly reminded himself that human beings were created to work together, just as the hands and feet cooperate within the same body. When someone chooses avoidance over honesty, it is not a reflection of your worth. It is a reflection of their inability to face their own discomfort. And for those who feel tempted to disappear instead of having a difficult conversation, Seneca offered an equally powerful reminder. Honesty, even when it hurts, is one of the greatest forms of respect we can offer another person. Avoiding a painful conversation through silence does not eliminate the pain. It merely postpones it and makes it heavier for everyone involved. Some burdens are not meant to be escaped. They are meant to be carried with courage. Modern application. So, how does this ancient wisdom apply to our digital world today? Social media has made disappearing almost effortless. One tap to block someone, one decision to stop replying, one silent exit. This convenience has created a culture where many people never develop the courage to face conflict directly, because there is always an easier escape that demands nothing from them. Ghosting has also spread into professional life. Job candidates vanish after interviews. Companies never respond after receiving applications. These moments reveal something deeper than poor communication. They reflect a culture that is gradually losing respect for other people's time, effort, and hope. In modern dating, ghosting has become one of the most common forms of rejection. It's far easier to disappear from a dating app than to tell someone honestly that you no longer wish to continue. Even in friendship, the deepest pain often doesn't come from a dramatic goodbye. It comes from watching someone who was once always there slowly fade into silence. No argument, no betrayal, just a quiet absence that eventually becomes permanent. In a world filled with shortcuts that help us avoid discomfort, choosing honesty, even when it hurts, is becoming an increasingly rare act of courage. And for those who have been left behind, choosing not to wait for an explanation that may never come is a far greater expression of freedom than revenge, resentment, or anger. Conclusion. Perhaps the hardest truth to accept is this: not everyone will be brave enough to be honest with you. Not every goodbye will come with the explanation you deserve. But, as the Stoic philosophers taught more than 2,000 years ago, peace has never come from forcing the world to give us the answers we want. Peace comes from letting go of that need altogether and choosing to move forward with your life, even without the closure you once longed for. Someone else's silence is not a reflection of your worth. It is only a reflection of the courage they have not yet found. And perhaps true courage is not getting answers from those who choose to disappear. Perhaps true courage is becoming the kind of person who, when the moment comes, chooses honesty, even when honesty feels far more difficult than silence. I'd love to hear from you, quietly, without pressure. What's one piece of wisdom that helped you let go of needing closure? Share it below. You never know whose heart you might heal.